What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Table Setters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Steve, we got some good news the other day. We are officially, actually now less than 100 days away from opening day 2026. Let's go.
Hell yeah, that's great news we all need as it's freezing in the Northeast, but no warming up in the bullpen. Today, we're joined by Dominic Leone, a former MLB pitcher from 2012 to 2024, whose career spanned the sports shift and evaluation, bullpen usage, and job security. Has since spoken a lot openly about mental health, identity, fatherhood, and life after baseball. Dominic, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. Let's get started. Let's get into it.
So we'll get right into it. Steve mentioned you've spoken a lot about mental health, which is awesome to see, with a level of clarity that suggests kind of real reflection on the issue. For much of your career, those conversations probably lived on the margins, I'm guessing, of the clubhouse, acknowledged quietly maybe, if at all, rarely treated as something players could name publicly without some kind of consequence. At what point in your career did mental health stop being that kind of background noise of the profession and become something you recognized as requiring the same intentional care and attention as your physical preparation?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great place to start. In your open, you talked about how my career kind of spanned a lot of different transitions throughout the game. Analytics being one of them, but the stress on mental health is definitely another. And it was around that time, 2018, 2019, where I saw a major shift in organizations really focusing and kind of doubling down on it, providing resources to players, actively, not telling people to go, get help, but actively just reminding players, hey, we have this stuff in house. We have this stuff for you in the event of anything, anything you want to talk about. We have the people to be here to do that. So it was around 2018, 2019 where I saw it, and then obviously. There's Drew Robinson is the best example I can give, and he was a teammate of mine, and his story is unbelievable. It's incredible, and it's funny because it's not funny, but it's I look back on it now and I go, man, I would have had no idea what he was going through, and then he got through it. He got through that stage, and now he is like one of the best MLB advocates for mental health, and so you started to kind of see that shift within players, within organizations. Guys were just willing to open up because this game can eat you alive if you let it. And so to be able to just get it off your chest and feel like you're in a safe space, maybe more than a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago. It's a good spot to be in right now for guys.
Yeah, and we had a conversation with Will Klein, obviously Game 6 hero of the World Series with the Dodgers, and he mentioned just the emphasis in the Dodgers organization, how normalized it is. And I think that's the same. And like you're talking about before, it seems like that would be the shift for athletes and beyond, because as we talk about physical and the ability in baseball, half this game, if not more of it, is mental. And I think you would agree with that, right?
100%. Yeah, I was about to say, like, that's the best point you can make with it is we train so hard to adjust physically, adjust, at the analytic numbers. We're trying to make the ball spin. We're trying to do physical things, but the one thing that we forget to do is focus on the mental. And the age old saying is baseball is 90% mental, or it's true. I mean, it is a grind, and it's not just between the white lines. It's when you go home at night. It's dealing with the fans on social media. Sometimes it's dealing with your results on and off the field. It's just there's a lot that goes into it, and for guys to now focus on it as much or even more than they do the physical side, that it's encouraging to see. It's a good shift, I think, in the game.
Let me
So
ask you about that. That just quickly, I didn't plan on asking you this, but that note you made about, even when you go home and dealing with the fans, maybe online, things like that, such a different world now. There's been a lot of talk about this recently with the gambling side of things, with, people messaging because they didn't hit their bet and they're saying just awful things to these players. Do you have any thoughts or opinion on what baseball, maybe sports in general, should do? Should they take a stand on the gambling stuff? I know they recently made some kind of adjustments to those micro bets based on the Class A story. but kind of seems like a Band-Aid over a big wound. Just any thoughts on gambling related to the mental health of players as well?
It's funny. I don't remember the usernames, but yeah, I had plenty of Venmo requests for X amount of dollars from guys that lost their bets because I whatever blew a game or gave up a hit or did something. So um, I was at a point in my career where I could kind of laugh at it, but I'm also
Mm,
like, damn, like this is a serious thing. Look, the sports gambling is something that's big. It's all over the country. It's growing. It can be a fun avenue. We all play fantasy football, or most of us do, and so there's a fun aspect to it. But when you bring it, as a former player and as a player when it got introduced, I really thought that, like, man, this could cause some issues, especially at the ballpark.
mm.
You just never know. I mean, with the kind of how the world is right now, where it's in a crazy place, and so with live betting, people betting small amounts, large amounts, and they're sitting behind you as you're warming up, and
Yeah.
they know where the family section might be, or they follow you out to your car after I don't know. I mean, those are extreme examples, but again, it's just something that you have to be mindful of now, in that landscape, and understand that it's now a new part of the business that brings in a lot of money for the larger organizations. But as a player, you got to just protect yourself.
So speaking on your journey, you went undrafted out of high school and earned your way to Clemson, where you quickly trusted in meaningful situations. As a true freshman, you were handed the ball in a postseason elimination game delivered, sending Clemson to the College World Series. So let's speak about how formative that was for your moment in terms of confidence and belief that you could take the next step, make it to major leagues, and knowing you could be trusted when it matters most.
Yeah, it was huge. Getting the ball in that game, that super regional game against Alabama, was kind of a shock. I'd been pitching well that year, don't get me wrong, but I was a freshman, and uh, I didn't necessarily feel or think that I would have just slotted right into that spot. But our coach Jack Leggett at the time, just he had a feeling. He believed. I was confident, but at the same time, I was nervous as hell. Especially with the emphasis that us at Clemson and now all over the country, teams put on Omaha, right? I mean, Clemson
Mm.
had they have Omaha in the tiger paw on the back of the hat. I mean, it's every day, every time you show up to the field, that's the goal. And so for me to be put on that stage where it's like, oh, this is it, here we go. We're either getting there or we're not, and it's on your back a little bit. Definitely nervous, but fun, right? Like you said, it was a breaking point for me, both more mentally, where I just said, okay, if you can overcome this, if you can overcome the nerves, overcome the fear, overcome the stress and the anxiety, and succeed, you can do anything, right? You can accomplish whatever you want, and you can take this as far as you can go. So it was huge, and luckily, panned out. I had some really good defense that game. I think we turned like 4 or 5 double plays, something crazy, and I took a big lead into, I believe, the sixth inning, and my guys, we got it done.
Early in your college career, you also dealt with a shoulder strain that forced you to adapt a bit. How much did that injury change the way you thought about pitching, not just physically, but in terms of understanding that survival in this game often means evolution?
Yeah, I mean, big time. Dealing with, and it ended up being just a minor deal, minor shoulder deal. But at the same time, it was the first real, like, wake up call to say, hey, you gotta take care of yourself, right? You're no longer just the best kid on your high school team, and you can roll out and put up the numbers and be successful on the field without really taking care of your pregame work, your postgame work, taking care of your body. And that's where it kind of really started, where I was like, damn, I'm missing games, I'm missing practices, I'm missing opportunities to get myself into the mix, get out onto the field, get it, earn opportunities. And so I said, I really got to kind of buckle down and adapt, and just make sure that I can uh, be as available as possible.
So I'm not sure if this story is true and you can expand on it, but when you were struggling during your junior year, you taught yourself to throw a cutter just watching Mariano Rivera videos online. Is that true?
It is. It is true. Yes. I struggled junior year a little bit, and it was kind of like, I need something. I need something to get guys off my fastball. My breaking stuff at the time wasn't great. I actually had a really good changeup. I just didn't throw it enough. But I was looking for something. I was looking for an answer, and I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in Massachusetts. I'm sorry, not Massachusetts, Connecticut, and was a Boston Red Sox fan.
Right.
And so I watched Mariano Rivera, dice the Red Sox and the, major leagues for, ever. And I'm like, man, it seems too easy. Like, why not just, let's start there, right? It's not like I'm trying to teach myself some crazy wild pitch. It's like I'm teaching myself a fastball that moves 6 to 8 inches, to my glove side. And so I just kind of went deep dive into, the depths of YouTube and found a couple of videos that I just watched nonstop over and over. I think I spent many study hall hours my junior year just secretly watching YouTube videos while I'm supposed to be doing homework, but it ended up paying off.
So how open is Clemson to being, or even Major League Baseball for the teams you played for, to being self-directed when coaching is not answering any of the questions you have about what you want to get done in at bats or just anything in your approach?
What I learned during my career, and this spans literally the whole time, so it's kind of an evolutionary piece where the beginning of my career at the lower levels, yes, you get some good instruction and you get a lot of help, and they're trying to help guide you, where you need to go. But once you pretty much get past double A, you're kind of hands off. Like you're on your own. So you have to really rely on yourself to be a really good self-evaluator, go and seek out the answers that you have questions, about, and you have to kind of take onus on yourself. I remember my rookie year in Seattle, my pitching coach was Rick Waits, and Rick's a great guy, knowledgeable player in his day, and did it for a long time, was a coordinator and stuff for a long time. And I think I talked to him like 4 times that year. And that's not because he, didn't want to be involved. It was just like, hey, you're rolling, kid. Like, I was feeding more off of the guys that were in the bullpen and the experienced players on the team. So I kind of just rolled with that side, and I didn't necessarily get the coaching side as much. They're at that level, at the upper levels, it's really hands off. You have to really be self-aware.
Following up on that, that reminds me, just like having to kind of be your own best advocate in a way. Adam Ottavino made headlines recently on his podcast for speaking on his time with the Mets and kind of saying he was frustrated with the way, in his opinion, the coaching staff kind of ran bullpen guys into the ground. And of course, a ton of Mets relief pitchers got hurt this year. So it kind of follows his point, or it makes his point look a little more valid. And he was saying like he felt like he had to be an advocate for a lot of maybe the younger guys that wouldn't speak up for themselves. Speak to that on as far as the health side of things. Is that true, or does it depend on the team you're with as far as having to be your own advocate health wise?
Yeah, you have to be an advocate for yourself in all phases of the game, physical, mental, health wise, all of it. You have to be on top of your game. I was with Adam in New York in 2023 for that brief period. And yeah, I mean, look, I don't feel the Mets abused us, but you could definitely see that guys were getting, they were in certain specific spots, and it was, very frequently. That happens. I mean, look, every organization values things differently. Every organization has now analytics that they focus on and say, who's the best matchup for this spot? And they kind of just roll with it. If that matchup comes up 1, 2, 3 nights out of a series, they're gonna roll with it. It's more about how the organization then treats like the following, right? So say you go 3 out of 4, are they willing to tell you, hey, don't even touch a ball for 2 days, like you're down, right? Or is it like, some organizations I've been in are like, no, like, if you can go, let's go, right? And it's funny, I was in a similar situation in 2024 with the White Sox, where we're we weren't very good. Our starters at the beginning of the season were not going very deep, and so our bullpen was getting used a lot. And I was one of those guys, but I made sure to tell our younger pitchers and our younger guys, like, hey, like, you guys, you got to speak up. If you need a day off, take a day off. If you need, and honestly, I wish I took my own advice a lot of the time. I pitched, I think, 17 out of the first 31 games or something like that year.
Wow.
And so I'm telling guys, hey, take breaks, uh, because it's a real thing. You have to speak up. Otherwise, they're just going to run you out there and hope that you do your best. And if you're not feeling 100% and you don't get the job done, that's when it starts to flirt with your job security and things can go south quickly.
From the outside, I always think it's interesting, a fan's perspective versus what's actually going on behind the scenes. I mean, we see baseball as a series of moments, appearances, results, mainly kind of what we care about at the end of the day. What's less visible for us is the ongoing struggle and strain that might be building over time for players, living with role ambiguity, navigating constant evaluation, and just kind of hoping that you have some stability in the franchise that you're with. Looking back across your own career as a whole, which part of that behind the scenes strain do you think took the greatest toll on you?
Oh man, it's hard because that bucket of strain is full for me. Now it's gone because I retired, but um, you know, different phases of life, different phases of my career, all brought different levels of strain and different avenues of strain and stress. And so, you know, you can go to example one, which is I moved 10 organizations over 12 seasons. So I'm constantly picking up and moving, and there's not a lot of stability. And, um, earlier on in my career where I just had my wife, it was okay. But, then, example two is you add kids into that, or you add a dog into that. And now you got to focus on travel. And, all of these things are on your dime, basically all the time, most of the time. So, there's a lot of financial stress, there's mental stress, there's family stress. It really weighs on you. Um, oh, and then you got to show up at the ballpark and pitch in front of 60,000 people that are screaming at you. Like there's a lot of that, and for guys, honestly, that wheel doesn't stop turning. It doesn't. Some guys aren't good at shutting it off. Some guys talk about where they can go to the ballpark, and from the ballpark until the game's over, they're focused on their job and baseball and whatever. And then once they go home and they can shut it off. I would guess and confidently say the majority of the league, that's not the case.
Mm.
You're thinking about that, and then everything starts to kind of snowball into each other. You're bringing your family life to the field. You're bringing your field results to the family. I mean, it can become a vicious cycle quickly. So, back to the beginning of the podcast where we talked about like the mental health side and being an advocate for yourself. Like, again, that's an area that you have to just be hyper aware and seek out help, seek out resources, whether it be your teammates or professionals to talk about this type of stuff and to get help and aid in any area you need.
So we do talk about the maintenance of perspective to keep during a long season and a long career. You played for over a decade in the major leagues with all that stress. But speaking on the day to day, what were your habits or personal rituals that you had, like your structured routines, maybe moments of clarity or humor that you're able to kind of take a break from the field that helps you reset, remain grounded during the grind that is 162 campaign of Major League Baseball?
Yeah, so early on in my career, whenever we would land in a city, and especially in Seattle, I was young. I was 22, and most of those guys in that bullpen were, late 20s, early 30s. Then we had Joe Beimel, who was like, 38. And anytime we landed in a city, it was like, hey, we're gonna go find something to eat. We're gonna go have a nice little, the cocktail and just hang out and just relax and unwind. And that aspect of things kind of took the stress of everything. For me being a rookie, it took the stress away. Right? I'm hanging out with friends. I'm hanging out with guys. We're having a nice meal. We're having, a nice glass of wine, and we're not necessarily talking baseball. We're talking everything under the sun. We're talking, Tom Williamson was a bartender, so we're talking about his stories, and we're talking about, Charlie Furbush, and we're doing, Boston accents. Like it made it really fun where you could kind of decompress. The other thing is, I love to golf. Any off day, whether it be home city, away city, I like to try and get out and golf and just do something else. Before games, I normally try and find a coffee shop, go sit, hang out. I mean, just mind numbing things, but you know, to the average person, they're like, "Oh God, like really, this is what he did," and you're like, "Yeah, it's like." When you're doing kind of the extravagant thing of playing Major League Baseball, you just want to, simplify everything. And so it was a lot of those kind of mundane, tasks and opportunities and things that we did that just kind of, helped us live that normal life again.
I mean, with the how long the season is, I mean, even if you think of spring training through the end of the season, I would imagine baseball has a way of kind of expanding beyond a profession and sometimes much closer to an identity. While you were playing, did you ever find yourself thinking about who you might be once baseball was no longer central to your life? And how did that conversation evolve as the end of your career came closer into focus?
That's a great question because I believe in my years of struggle, or where the struggle really started for me was 2018, and in those years following, one of the big questions that continued to bring a lot of anxiety is, well, who the hell are you? Like I have a lot of passions, I have a lot of interests, I have a lot of things that I like to do and experience and live, but um, for 30, 32 years up until I retired last year, I was mentally sick about the game of baseball. Like I was obsessed with it. It was everything that I, wanted, and that was the goal and that was the identity. And so it's like with people, then you start to get people that are like, oh, they recognize you. And why do they recognize you? Because you're a baseball player. Um, you know, that was one of those things that I really struggled with. And then towards the end of my career where I could kind of see, I could kind of see the roller coaster coming down a little bit, and I started to say, okay, who am I? And what am I about? And I'm not just the baseball player. I am, dad of two. I am husband of my wife. I am a Clemson football fanatic. Like I started to really dive away from the game and focus a little bit probably too much on real world stuff. But again, fans see us only as baseball players, and part of the reason why I got into this content creation world is to share my story, share my experiences about how I kind of broke that identity and how I'm breaking that identity, not not wiping it away, not erasing it, but just showing that, like, hey man, I'm a human too. Like I put my pants on just like you guys in the morning, and we all like different stuff. We have different passions, and we're all unique. And so even though I wear I wore a uniform for a decade, um, and 9 or 10 different ones, you can't just recognize me as that. I am also Dominic Leone, a parent, content creator slash podcaster slash full time dad. So
So you are making the content. We keep, we see it, and we're going to talk about that and give you a platform to discuss everything you're doing over there. But you are doing a team by team discussion. I guess my question to follow up that is, how long did it take you to be able to watch baseball again? Was there a transition period of being like, I need a break from even watching the game as a fan, or did you just jump right back in?
yeah, no. So even during my playing days, as soon as the season was over, um, I shut the TV off. I wouldn't watch. I'd maybe catch some highlights here and there, but I would not sit down and watch a game. I had to get away from it. Um, Later on in my career, as I moved team to team to team to team, and I had more friends and was able to network better in the game. I started to, I would check people's stats, and I'd check, MLB trade rumors and seeing what's going on. But um, once I retired, I didn't turn the game on or turn anything on for um, a long time. Literally, the first game I watched was Game 7 this year of the ALCS, the
Oh,
Mariners
wow.
Blue Jays game.
Mm.
And it's funny because two teams that I had success with and really loved their fan bases, and there was a lot on the line for both of them. So I was like, oh, you know what? All right, I'll sit and watch it. It's exciting, and then I ended up watching a couple World Series games after that. But it took me a while.
So you mentioned a big piece of your identity is becoming a parent, and I'm sure that introduced a lot of different set of priorities and reference points for how success, failure, and perspective are measured in your life. So how did fatherhood alter the lens through which you experienced the everyday highs and lows of baseball? And what ways did it change what ultimately felt important to you while you were still playing throughout your career?
Yeah, it was a transition for me to almost a better mindset, a better mind frame where um, I started to realize that, hey, like what happens at the field is not life or death. Walking three and giving up four, and and getting booed off the field is not the end all be all. You're not walking into your apartment and your kid is booing you. Like once you step through that threshold, that door, your dad. You got to change diapers. You got to clean the house. You got to help mom, do whatever she needs. So, I really had to you know put myself in the back seat and say, hey, all this baseball stuff is great. It's stressful. It's hard. It's tough, but the results on the field are not keeping this kid alive, and not building your family, and not building the relationships with your family. And I wasn't perfect at it. I don't think anybody is. But at the same time, it was apparent to me that that was a shift and a mindset shift that I had to make, and make it quick.
So I know we brought up the Mets before, and there's another question. As a Mets fan, I'm very eager to ask you. They're in all over the news this offseason for lots of different reasons, to be honest. But we've heard tons of theories recently about a fractured clubhouse that's been haunting them the last year or so. Really, still kind of waiting for the proof of that, but a lot of talk about that. Steve and I have talked about the effect of a clubhouse on results many times before, and it's kind of, in my opinion, like a chicken or the egg situation or conversation, in the way of like, does a great clubhouse result in better performance, like a close-knit team, or does winning result in a better, closer clubhouse? In your experience, how important is a great clubhouse when it comes to the results on the field?
I think it's paramount. I think you have to have a good clubhouse. And that just goes for not necessarily on or off the field, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean wins or losses. Um, it's about work. I mean, think about work, right? If you show up to an office job and you're in a cubicle next to four people you hate, and the vibe is terrible, you're gonna hate your job, right? You're not gonna want to go. Um, you could still have great results, but you're gonna hate your job. And so, having a great clubhouse is, in my mind, one of the most important things, and that's why I always gravitated towards the funnier guy, the clubhouse guy. I wanted to kind of be a part of that. I wanted to help boost the vibe. I wasn't great at it all the time. I had my own struggles, and the game is hard. But the majority of my career, I really tried to be as goofy, funny, lively, having a good time as possible, so that like we're keeping the energy good in the clubhouse. Sometimes it's unavoidable. I mean, me being a reliever is, not a huge, it's not a huge pull on the vibe string, but whatever you can add to it, you can add. So, I definitely think that's a key. And then when you want to talk about the wins and losses, the best example I have is look at the 2021 Giants. Um, they were not expected to do a whole lot, and that team was as close as any of I've ever been on,
Mm.
and we had a blast every single day. And then what helps is winning, and we won a ton that year. And so that it again, that snowball effect, it really, really caught fire, and just we were rolling.
So speaking of clubhouse, is there, over all those years in the bigs, is there a teammate that sticks out to you? If you had to name a favorite teammate, if we put you on the spot.
Oh, You're asking me to go. You're asking me to go for 12 years, 10 different organizations, minor leagues, big. No, I couldn't single a guy out. I would for sure leave 50 people out that I should have named, and I'd get text messages and DMs from all of them like, "What the hell, dude? Like, come on." No, look, there were a ton throughout the years, and I'll say this: one of my main goals at the end of my career, and really, it came from spending time with guys like Adam Wainwright, spent time with Buster Posey, spending time with those big name dudes and realizing their legend status, but then they can be just human and be good people, and everyone raves about them. I wanted to be one of those guys. I wanted to be, I'm never going to have the Hall of Fame numbers, but if I could have been like a Hall of Fame teammate, that's what matters most. If I could go to spring training right now and go talk to some of my former teammates on all these different teams and whatever, I would hope that they'd be like, welcome, open arms. Hey, yo, what's up, man? Hey, love you. Like guys that I don't necessarily keep in touch with. So that's something that I know I'm kind of getting off track of the question a little bit, but I guess I can't single anybody out. But like I said, my main goal was to be that teammate for all the guys that I played with, be the guy that they talk about.
So I'm not going to ask you to get into any specifics for a clubhouse, but just in a general sense, for a clubhouse that isn't vibing, what would be sort of the issue that comes up? Like an example of like personality differences? Is it leadership from the top? What can cause a clubhouse to fall apart, or is it just losing?
I mean, losing again doesn't help. But yeah, I mean, look, there are strong personalities in Major League Baseball. There are, honestly, sometimes like there are organizations that they run a tight ship, and it seems a little tight, to walk into work. But like I said, for the most part, throughout my career, uh, it, I never really came across one player that was like a cancer. I never came across one specific organization that was like, oh my God, this is horrible, right? Um, you know, you want to talk about the 2024 White Sox, right? And the worst season of all time. You guys, you would think from the outside looking in, like, oh my God, it's got to be like a graveyard. And to be honest, the players and the staff and the people there, I mean, they were great. They're fantastic. There was a good clubhouse vibe. It just was hard. It was hard every day because we just lost every day. So um, there are a lot of factors that can affect both positively and negatively. But I can't quite put my finger on just one single issue.
No, it's more than fair for sure. But we talk about the role of a reliever. The line between being viewed as reliable and being viewed as replaceable can be this remarkably thin. And it's often shaped by a small number of batted ball outcomes that, maybe it's not quality of execution. I mean, you can actually pitch and hit your spot and maybe not get the job done, but the layman fan's not seeing that. So how do you mentally prepare for that reality, knowing that you could execute well, still be judged harshly by the results, even when the consequences for your role or roster spot were very real? So all of
Yeah.
these come into place. I mean, we have a little bit more of an understanding with the advanced stats that are in the game of baseball that kind of came in probably the middle of your career that they relied on. So we can actually see like, yes, these pitches are in the right spot. It's just not the outcome, or we're waiting for it to actually get there. But how do you look at that from that lens?
It was tough. I mean, that whole aspect ate me up throughout my career because you realize you are replaceable. It doesn't matter what you did the year before. It doesn't matter. You're always, always, always replaceable. There's always somebody that's breathing down your neck. Um, I think for me, as I can now reflect back on it, the reason I lasted so long in a world like that, where and in a role like I had, where I wasn't a defined closer, I never had the long term deal, but I still managed to play for over a decade. Um, you just have to be so mentally locked in on your process. focusing on only the things that you can control. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to hit your spot every time. But if you can at least prep, go about your business the right way, do the things you need to do in the weight room, in the training room, uh, you know, focus on the scouting reports. Make sure that you personally, as the individual, are as dialed in as possible. Then you can live and die with the results. You can understand that whatever happens on the field, whatever happens between the lines, is on you. And then there are outside factors. There are whatever errors and things that happen in the game of baseball that on the surface level you can just look at and go, okay, like shit happens, right? Um, but the games that really ate me up and bothered me are the ones that I looked back after and go like, damn, I was not prepared. I was not dialed in. It started with me. It wasn't anybody else's fault in that spot. Like, you understand that you can be replaced, and there's a business side of the game, and you might not agree with any of it. I certainly didn't a lot in my career, but that's the game. That's part of it, and to just focus on your process and how you can be your best every day is kind of the way you got to go.
Speaking of that business side of the game, this year's free agent market has made it pretty clear how precarious the process can be for veteran relievers. There's kind of extended waiting periods, sometimes shorter commitments, in a sense that opportunity doesn't always align with your recent performance. Based on your experience, what do you think fans most misunderstand about the emotional toll of free agency?
Um, imagine that around October every year you get laid off,
Mm.
and then you don't hear anything from a job standpoint until January. I mean, you're basically ghosted from October to January, and that's guys like myself. That's not to say the high profile free agents are always having conversations. They're always kind of in that boat. Now that is changing as well. It seems that those deals are taking longer to formulate as now, but yeah, you're basically from season's end, and you're a free agent to um, very stressful phone calls in January when you're like, I have to report in less than 3 weeks. Where am I going? Um, you want to talk about the the outside factors of the game as well. Hey, where am I going? Where am I moving my family? How big of a house do I got to get? Am I staying in a hotel? Am I shipping my stuff to Arizona, or am I going to Florida? Uh, all of this. What's the deal? Is it a 1 year deal, 2 year deal? Is it minor league? Is it non-roster? What is it? I mean, it's I mean, it's basically there's nothing, 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 and then it's like a fireworks show goes off, and then you show up in spring training. you know,
Crazy.
so yeah, it's wild.
I mean, we see some of the depth deals happening too. The Devin and I were discussing this on our last podcast, how the bullpens are being, I mean, at this point, it's just like if you didn't get in early, you're waiting. We just saw Chris Martin get a deal back with the Rangers. So we're seeing some of the arms being levied up now. But speaking of the bullpens, over the last several years, we're seeing teams increasingly emphasizing the depth of the bullpen. We watched the Dodgers utilize that to a back-to-back World Series championship. Of course, the roster flexibility, the short-term solutions, cycling relievers at a pace, honestly, that would have been unthinkable in earlier eras. So do you feel that this shift has fundamentally changed how the reliever role is valued in the game of baseball? And how does that reality shape the way pitchers are now thinking about longevity, preparation, and planning for life beyond just the single season? We mentioned these guys trying to plan about where they'd be.
Yeah, the reliever game, to be honest, it feels it's a lot different from when I broke in. It is very much I'm trying to think of the best analogy I can give. But it basically feels like at any given night you could be one and done. Hey, you go, you have a good outing, and then it's like, well, if you have options, there's a really good chance you're gone. You know, unless you're a financial investment of the organization and of the team. Um, and now that definition has changed. Financial investments for some teams, you'd be making 4 or 5 million in the bullpen, being like, "Huh, all right, I'm making some good money." I'm feeling pretty good, and then it's like, "No, see ya." We got some. We need an arm. That's the classic saying. Hey, we need an arm. We just needed an arm, and so we're gonna have to send you down. And it's like, well, you know, I didn't pitch for 14 days, and then you throw me for 3 innings back to back nights. Uh, you know, you didn't need an arm back then, or what's the deal? Um, yeah, it's a tough world to live now. It's a tough world to live. You have to feel more like a bullet than a long term piece. And teams and organizations are willing to just fire that bullet and see where it goes. And once it kind of loses its firepower, they know they've got an organization full of guys that are just ready to reload.
So the current collective bargaining agreement is set to expire after the 2026 season, but even though it's a season away, it's on everybody's mind. People have already been talking about it for months, with the salary cap thoughts and everything like that, salary floor. Most of the talk is always players union versus owners. But from your experience, I'm curious, is there also a bit of a battle between the top players who might have security and giant paychecks and maybe the players toward the bottom of the totem pole who maybe feel like they can't afford a lockout?
That's a good question, because I've obviously been through a couple of negotiations. Not I haven't sat at the table or I haven't been a part of those conversations, but I've seen secondhand, how it's gone down. I haven't spoken to people personally about those type of decisions. I mean, Max Scherzer is one of them that I have spoken with, and I know that the well-being of the entire league of baseball was in good hands with Max. I know he's gotten a lot of shit, to be honest, about the decision making, but I truly believe that the guys that sat in that room on the executive committee were doing the best that they could to represent all of baseball. What I think gets lost is, and I'm not just saying about players. I think just in general, what gets lost is the meat and bones of the league. Everyone, look at how media portrays the league now. It's exciting young rookies and the top-notch superstars, right? And guys like myself and everybody in between kind of get lost. And with these negotiations and how things have gone, it is kind of bottlenecked that middle part of the league, and I feel like it's pushed a lot of that out from where you used to see AAA teams, their average age would be like 28, 29, 30, 31. There's teams who'd stash older, experienced veteran players, that we'd be making $1 million or two, and but that was where the value lied. Now you see the average age in AAA has dropped dramatically, and because it's filled with just these uber prospects, these young, uh, some are one hit wonders, some are just lightning in a bottle, some are really really good players, and it's the quick, it's the fast, kind of result oriented part of the league, and so I think with those negotiations, like I said, it unfortunately it was great. It paid the younger guys. It got guys always being favorite guys getting paid, and obviously, we held out for the stuff on the upper end. But I think it created a pretty big wedge that was starting to push out older, aging players like myself, who were the kind of 1 year guys, $1 million to $3 million. The very high valued utility players. You started to see those guys kind of vanish and get out of the game. And um, even after productive seasons, it was kind of baffling and I think unfortunate for what I call the meat and bones of the league. Your superstars are going to be superstars. They're going to get paid. They're going to make their millions, and the young guys, they're going to get their opportunity. Like I said, the positive was you got to pay the young guys early enough to where a lot of times guys don't get that opportunity. They don't get to arbitration. They don't get the chance to make those $1 million contracts. But I think it was at the sacrifice of losing a lot of those mid-tier, solid, just like meat and bones type players.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that conversation about the lockout that's looming is about the salary cap, Devin, that he mentioned before. And we heard the famous thing, the Manfred Harper situation in the clubhouses where Manfred was making his tour through all the clubhouses and just making goodwill with everybody. But it feels like there's this point of passion or pride on the player side that they don't want to be the union that allows the salary cap. And it feels like that's going to be getting in the way where as a fan, it's unfortunate, but it really feels like we're inevitably going to have a work stoppage of some point because both sides are not budging. And that's just unfortunate.
Yeah, it's going to come to a smash at some point. It has every time this type of stuff rolls around. Look, I think as a former player myself, you hold on to every right and everything that you can, because you've earned it. You are the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. The fraternity of Major League Baseball players is very, very small, and you're dealing. You're in negotiations with heavy hitters, so you have to be strong. You have to be strong-willed, and you have to be willing to fight at the table. Look, I'll say this: the stoppage of baseball is going to hurt everybody, because you strip all this stuff away, you strip all the business away, you're taking away one of the greatest games of all time, and you're depriving players of the ability to feed their families and people to make a living and to fight for opportunities and do things that normal humans do when they go to work. You're stripping that away. You're stopping that. And also you're depriving fans of that wonderful experience of sitting and watching a baseball game, and enjoying the sport for what it is. It's the beauty of baseball that I think all this work stoppage and things. Look, it might happen. It could happen. It seems it's on pace to happen. It's unfortunate. You never want to see it, but at the same time, just like everything else, you got to protect yourself. And as players, we got to protect ourselves, and we have to, fight for every right we have.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that Devin and I were discussing is the momentum the game has seen. You mentioned the young players and the talent coming through, but the popularity seems to be surging. Whether it be the ratings for the World Series or the attendance numbers, everything is surging up. So that feels like that should be the middle ground everybody should meet on. Like, we just can't let this happen.
Yeah, I think that's, somebody I'm sure will be pounding a boardroom table saying that exact thing, which is like, we cannot let this happen. So whatever concessions are made or whatever, things are settled upon and agreed upon, I hope it's number one for the best of the game. And number two, I hope, the players protect themselves and get their side. And, obviously ownership and organizations are going to get theirs as well. So it's going to be a struggle, but hopefully we can get back to baseball, get it back on the field.
For sure. And from the outside, I mean, a lot of perspective. We talked about perspective of fans and just people from the outside looking in. Careers are often reduced to the stat lines, the transactions, or looking at the back of your baseball card or your baseball reference page, or even for some of us nerds, baseball savant, looking at some of the arm angles and all that, which can flatten years of effort and the adjustment you made and uncertainty into something deceptively simple, in my opinion. And my question to you is, what do you wish fans better understood about the day-to-day reality of what it takes to sustain a career like yours? You mentioned being in the big leagues for 10 plus years, 12 years to be exact, the parts that never show up in the box score or a transaction log, but ultimately define what it takes to have staying power in the league.
I think, the stories that I end up telling to the average, I call them the average Joe, but it's just the people that I would talk to in the off seasons and things. The stories I would share are more about, the thing we already talked about, the everyday grind. What fans don't see is, when you've got a family of 3 in a hotel room, and that's where you're living, and you're raising your child in a different city than your home city, and you've got no help, and he's up all night screaming and crying, and you don't get a whole lot of sleep, and then you get sent down, and you've got to pick up and move all those people, and oh, by the way, you just got DFA'd, so the paychecks stop, and and then you get put back on the roster, and you got to show up and you got to pitch. A lot of people think we just roll in on Rolls Royces and private jets and show up to the yard and play a game for a living and leave. It's not the case. Yes, there are a lot of advantages, and I'm not asking for people to cry boo-hoo for us, but just understand that it is real life. A lot of my bad outings, again, I put the onus on myself, but whenever I would see whatever Twitter comments or get like these death threats in Instagram messages or the Venmo transaction receipts,
Yeah.
hey, pay me, I don't even want to clap back at these people with rage and aggression. It's just like, dude, if you understood, if you understood that I was trying to rock my 6-month-old to bed all night, and he wouldn't go to sleep, and I didn't get to bed until 7 in the morning, and we had a day game at 1, and oh, by the way, I didn't get to sleep because I had to then go do this and close out an apartment in this city and do that. It's life. It's
For
life.
sure.
And then you have to show up and do a job that's incredibly hard, incredibly stressful, and do it 162 days out of the year. Look, again, nobody's going to cry boohoo for me. I get it, but at the same time, just as fans, whenever you're watching a game, and you're getting ready to dog cuss the guy for missing a fly ball or striking out or giving up a home run, let there be at least glimpse of a thought that says, you know what, he might be going through some shit. It's tough. Like, you want good results, but understand it ain't gonna happen all the time.
So listen, you've given us a ton of time here. We're gonna try to get you out of here in a few minutes with maybe like 3 lighter questions here, rapid fire, to get to the end here. But I want to start with this. The offseason's been mostly a slow go, but it started to pick up, especially with the relief pitching market. The last couple of days, we've seen Luke Weaver today, Brad Keller, Tyler Rogers a few days ago, and a bunch of other guys as well. So my question to you would be, what has been your favorite offseason signing so far? Like maybe just a fit between team and player that you really see as something that will go well.
To be honest, the most recent one for me was Tyler Rogers, and I say that because number one, I know him very well. We played together in San Francisco. Our families were really good friends. I think his repertoire, his how he pitches, how he goes about his business is going to be huge for Toronto, and it's going to be big in the AL East. Those West Coast teams, man, like San Francisco, we would get hidden from everyday eyes. ESPN doesn't necessarily play those highlights. So seeing Tyler for the first time, number one, it's incredible to watch. But the value he'll bring, not only for a longevity piece, a guy that's sustainable. He's available every night. Obviously he's not touching upper 90s or 100, from that angle. So I guess entertainment value goes down, right? But he's so consistent. He's so consistent. He's so good. And I think for Toronto to push itself over the edge, to just know that they have a guy in that bullpen, for Pete Walker, who I know personally as well, for him to just know that at any moment he can call down on that phone and he's got a guy that can go get 9th inning outs or 6th inning outs and not even bat an eye. It's going to be huge for that team. And as they try and, run back the AL East, it's going to be big for them.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
they posted a whole bunch of things where they said some games will have Trey Savage coming in on one angle, and then you have to face Tyler Rogers on the other
There you
angle.
go.
It's a nightmare
Yes.
for a lineup.
Ridiculous.
Yes, I'm telling you that type of stuff. I don't know from the hitting standpoint, but I can only imagine it's a nightmare to prepare for. The vertical change of those two.
I know Pitching Ninja, I think either today or yesterday, put the overlay of the two of them pitching. It just looks like two different sports. It's crazy, but
Yeah,
that'll be
yeah,
fun to see.
it'll
All
be
right, so
good.
second question here on the way out. If you were out there on the major league mound just one more time for one more batter, who would you want to face, or who would you choose to face?
Ooh, in today's game,
I mean, it could be also a former player, I guess, someone they have a history with, or maybe someone you didn't get to face. You could answer
no,
however
no,
you
no,
want.
no, 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 no. I feel like as any good competitor would say, I'd have to try and face the best, and so whoever you deem the best being, um, Otani. I would probably go Otani, and I'll say this: Aaron Judge only hit a double off me my last time I faced him. Otani took me deep in spring training, so
Mm.
I was a little pissed off about that. So maybe I'll try and one up Shohei, one more time or one last
I like that answer. That's fair. Okay, and then just one
time.
more here before we let you go. After all the innings, the teams, the moments, is there one strikeout in your career that still stands out to you as your favorite, or one moment, and why does that one stick?
Yeah. Padres Giants 2021, Eric Hosmer to close out the division and win the NL West against the 106 win Dodgers. We had the 107 win Giants. There was just so much building up to that moment for me personally. The grind of that season, the chip on my shoulder that I had all year that year, and then it started an inning or two before where we had a big lead. It was like 11-1 or something at one point, and I remember the phone rang, um, and a lot of our mainstay guys, like Tyler Rogers, Zach Littell, Jake McGee. Those guys were kind of just relaxing, hanging out. But I was on edge. I was like, ready to rock. And I remember the phone rang probably in like the sixth or seventh inning, and it was a very quiet phone call. And then Craig Albarnez, the manager of the Orioles now, looks over to me and he's like, "Hey, he's like, if this gets any closer, he's like, would you want to pitch?" I said, you know, "Yeah, I would. Like, yeah, hell
Nice.
yeah, I would want to pitch. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we're locking this thing up. We're gonna win the division." Um, and so it turned out that we had a young kid go in and he pitched well, just got knocked around a little bit, gave a couple runs up, and that phone rang again, and I immediately was just like, this is it, man. This is me announcing that I'm back. I'm here. I'm doing it for a city that I fell in love with. I'm doing it for players in that clubhouse that I loved, and um, again, it really helped solidify that chip on my shoulder, and so the adrenaline was an all time high. And then plus, I didn't realize that at the time, but to be the guy that got the last ever Buster hug,
Oh
last
wow.
ever Buster Posey hug, was pretty cool. That's a nice little added note there at the end.
Oh, I love that. That's an amazing moment. I could picture it in my brain too. Just awesome how you explained
Yeah.
it. So I want to give you the platform here to tell our listeners how they can follow you and what you got going on content wise. You mentioned all the great stuff you got going on. I see you on Instagram putting out great content, but this is your platform here to let everybody know where to find you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, you guys if you're interested, you follow me on Instagram at dleone26. I just got on TikTok. I'm trying to catch up there. I've got an LTK shop. I'm trying to just, talk about all the interests and stuff that you have off of the field. And also, kind of provide a little comedic outlet for some people. That's one side of things. And the other side of things is talking baseball, talking my experiences, understanding that the value that I could bring to whether it's youth kids, high school kids, current players, whatever, from a mechanic standpoint, a physical standpoint, or especially a mental standpoint. Being able to be an advocate for somebody to say, "Hey, if you ever need anything, just reach out." That's kind of why I got into the social and to just become a face in front of people that I know are struggling. The game is dark, and I know a lot of former players, a lot of current players are probably going through some stuff. And so for me to be, in the public eye again, not necessarily for what I'm doing on the field, but for me being stupid and silly and funny off the field, but also, talking some real life stuff. I'm hoping that if it just helps one person, kind of get through their day, whether it's a player or whether it's a normal person, if I can just help people, kind of kick back and relax at the end of the day and laugh and enjoy life a little bit, then that's all worth it.
Well, again, we appreciate all the time. We hope you have a great holiday season, and you're welcome back anytime you want to talk ball with us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. It was really, really fun. Hopefully, we can get back on sometime soon.
Absolutely. And we'll be back in 1 second to wrap up this episode. Once again, we want to thank Dominic Leone for hopping on here and having a conversation. Of course, check out everything he's doing on social media, all the great content he's putting out, and just a fantastic conversation from a guy who's been in the league for 12 years.
Yeah, and we really do highly suggest to give him a follow on all the socials there. He is putting out great stuff and consistent content too. And like he kind of mentioned, he's striking such a fun balance of humor, but then also talking about some of the serious real life stuff. So just a good follow. And I kind of look forward to seeing where he goes with it. I have a feeling he's going to become a little bit of a bigger and bigger face in the social media world of baseball.
For sure. And you guys can check us out on social media as well over here on X and on Instagram. We've been posting a little bit more at Table Setters Pod. Devin and I trying to do, or at least daily reels about the news in between, because we're not getting on here and having a conversation. But as we mentioned or alluded to during this conversation with Dom, a lot of news has been dropping. I mean, you mentioned the Luke Weaver stuff, but there's been stuff. I mean, we haven't even been on here with the Pete Alonso news. This is the first time we're sitting here. So there's a lot of stuff that happened from just last week.
Yeah, it's true. I'm usually we're on here a little more often, and I'm sure we will be going forward. But yeah, I mean, we're also, as we talked about before we jumped on here, everybody in the Northeast and maybe all over the country, I don't know, is battling different sicknesses, mysterious illnesses, flu, all that stuff. So it's been tough around here. But hopefully, I know Steve is coming down with something right now. Hopefully, we can battle that and get back on here soon.
On the other side
of it. I hope so. Yeah.
But yeah, keep following us on social media. We've been posting stuff. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Posted something about the MLB Cup. We had a conversation a while ago about it, but it was in vogue, obviously, with the NBA Cup. And congrats to the New York Knicks for not hanging the banner. There's a lot of discussion from a lot of New York fans. For you, as a Knicks fan, do you think a banner should reside in MSG, or are you in camp of don't put the banner up?
I would need someone to convince me of it. I'm open-minded, because that's what I would say. I'm open-minded. I wouldn't give a resounding yes, but if someone could convince me why, I think I could buy it. I said to someone today, a fellow Knicks fan at work, I feel like it was cool. I'm not over the moon about it, but I think you guys were saying in the chat yesterday, this is something that more than likely will grow with importance over the years. It's still fairly new, and I think a lot of old school fans or casual fans are still kind of maybe struggling to buy into it. But clearly, if you watch that game last night, it matters to the players. So I think once you see that, how much it matters to them over the years, it's going to gain significance and importance. So yeah, I'm open-minded to it. We'll see. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, and there's a certain bias in the United States, of course, internationally, those that consume soccer at a high level, the FA Cup and things like that are always out there to have. And we'll see where it goes. As you mentioned, as years go, importance gets created. That's kind of how things continue down the line, but that's the only way importance happens. Because I'm sure when the NBA Finals first happened, it wasn't as prestigious as it was. Now you can look back in the past. It's just a conversation of the recency of the importance.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I got to say, go back to you mentioned the videos we've been putting up, the reels on Instagram, just kind of quick updates and reactions to daily news on Instagram up there. One of my friends the other day, I saw him, and he had seen the videos that we were putting up and noticed that we were in our cars a lot. Like you were in your car, I was in my car. And apparently he was under the impression that we were doing this while driving. And he's like, I was really worried. And seems really dangerous to film yourself while reacting. And I was like, why would you think we were driving? But I did notice in at least one of your videos, you still have your seatbelt on. So it does give the impression that you're on the road. But no, we are not driving, guys. If anyone else is concerned out there, we are parked. And there's other videos I think we put out where we're not behind the wheel. But yeah, I guess the first several were in the car filming.
Yeah, sometimes it just comes to me and I'm just I see something pop up, whether it's The Athletic or a push notification from MLB trade rumors or whatever.
Right.
I'm just popping on here and having a conversation. So no, I am not driving while I'm doing the video. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. No filming and driving.
So we'll be back soon with episode 125. Obviously, the holidays next week and all of that. We'll see how we can fit another episode in, but we will certainly be back when some of the big fish are going to hop into the boat, because we still got Bellinger out there. We still got Bregman, Forever Valdez, Tucker's out there. There's a lot of big names waiting to come out here, and we'll be on here discussing it and maybe we'll have more guests. I know you have some other guys in the pipeline as well, Dev.
Definitely, yeah. There's a few people we're going to reach out to very soon. And to mention, like, the NPB players, like, their window is getting closer and closer to a close.
Yeah, the 22nd. That's in 5 days. Yeah.
Yeah, Tatsuya Amai. There was just a report today that your Yankees and the Cubs appear to be the finalists, maybe the Phillies. So I think some things are about to drop here in the next. I don't know. I feel like some big fish are going to start to drop in the next week or two.
For sure. And we'll keep you guys posted on all those things. Follow us on Instagram and X, again, at Table Setters Pod. But until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.